Hello, here we are again. Today we have a mission to accomplish, and that mission is to taste Viejas Tinajas Blanco from the Martino winery. Viejas Tinajas, here we are. What means Viejas Tinajas? Old terracotta amphoras. So we're going to taste this incredible wine. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about the winery. The Martino winery. Remember, I told you that the first winery I visited in my life was the Martino many years ago. This was in 1996. Well, and then when I visited this winery, which is located in Isla de Maipo, it's called Maipo Island, but it's not an island. This is about an hour southwest from Santiago, in the area of Maipo called in between mountains, entre cordilleras. Remember, between the Andes mountain range and the coastal mountain range, more fertile central valleys. So when I visited the winery, I had the opportunity to taste in the laboratory the Carmenere vintage 1996. You know that the Martino winery was the first one that labeled a wine as Carmenere and export that wine also as Carmenere. Why? Because Carmenere was rediscovered. Why rediscovered? I'm going to tell you the history of Carmenere in a different video. It was rediscovered in 1994. This was a French ethnographer that was visiting a vineyard in the Maipo Valley as well and realized that some of the vineyards that we call late Merlot, because it used to ripe later, 3 weeks later, was not Merlot. It was something that he called us that was Carmener. But Carmener has different names to call it. Okay, so they didn't call it Carmener, they call it Gran Vidurre, and they made a blend with Cabernet Sauvignon. So it was not like 100% or 85% to be legally a Carmener. So the first winery who labeled a bottle with Carmenere variety and export it was the Martino called Santines Winery then. Okay, so the Martino, they have not only been pioneers because of this, because of the Carmenere, but they have been pioneers in many, many things. One of them is looking further away from where they are. They're located in Maipo Valley. That's where they have their main vineyard. And for many years, we had everything there and we didn't move much from the area. So we had the whites in the Maipo Island, we have the reds, everything was there. So when we start learning about these new areas, these new terroirs, they were one of the first to be pioneers in exploring further north, further to the west, to the coast, and further south as well. And they start looking at the old vines, at these varietals that were initially brought by the Spanish in colonial times. Remember that in the first video we talk about País varietal, that is the mission grape. The second varietal introduced by the Spanish was the Moscatel. There are many different Moscatels. Okay, this was introduced. All the record says that in the 18th century, but there are some records that said late 17th century. There are some records that say that mainly in the north. The majority of the Moscatel used in Chile is to produce pisco, which is a distill from grapes. You make a base wine first and then you distill that. But we're going to talk about pisco in a different chapter, in a different video. So, and then was introduced to the south. This vineyard, where the grapes are sourced for these Viejas Tinajas, are planted in Gariliwe, which is Itata Valley. This is about 445 miles away down south, southwest from Santiago. If we can translate it to miles, will be about 280 miles. Okay, the vineyard has a very important could influence from the Pacific Ocean because it's only about 24 kilometers from the ocean. It's about 15 miles from the ocean. And remember that our ocean, as we get closer to the ocean, we get closer to a cooler climate. So there is a cool breeze that comes together with morning fog that moderates the climate and also gives a very, cool influence to those vineyards. So this is where the vines are planted. This is Muscatel, and the vines were planted in 1905. They're very old vines. And the system of conduction, you can look at in the back, is called golobet, which is like wild, without conduction, without wiring in them, in the natural way. Okay, so first I'm gonna pour this wine. So I'm gonna start taking. Look at this color. Look at this color. Wow, this is a 2022 vintage. So was fermented last year. But let me tell you that the Martino, they're not only pioneers, as I told you before, in the Carmenere, in looking to the different terroirs, looking to another places, and also going back to rescue all these patrimonial vines, but also in the way they vinify their wines. Well, this wine is so special. This wine was not fermented in stainless steel tanks, was not fermented in oak barrels, was fermented in old terracotta amphoras. And these old terracotta amphoras were not bought brand new and imported into the country. They were rescued from the south part of Chile, where they were used to ferment wines in the old time. So this wines is a tribute, for these vineyards, the first vineyards planted in that area in 1551 in the south part of the country, and to these varietals. So this wine is fermented in in the amphora, in the terracotta, in the old terracotta amphora, with the skins, okay, and stays with the skins for 5 months, and then we separate the solids, the skin and the seeds, from the wine, and the wine was kept amphoras, in the amphoras for the rest of the time, about 5 months more. You see the color to be a white wine, a young white wine, is a little darker, and this is because of the skin contact. Some of the vintages before were made. I don't know if you know what an orange wine is. Well, an orange wine is a wine that has kind of an orange color, and this is because it had a long skin contact. Usually, when I started learning about wines about 27 years ago, they told us that we never ferment the white wines with the skins, because the skins gets oxidated and then they turn into the wine to a more orange color. So that was not desirable then. But today it's kind of a trend. So there are different vintages. They have more like an orange color to it, and that's because only is due to the skin contact. Okay, so this is let me put my glasses on. So this is 85 legally, 85% muscat, and 15% are other whites, mainly Shiraz. But legally, the law in general in the world says that for a wine to be called certain varietal, you need at least of 85% of that varietal content inside the bottle. In Chile, the law accepts 75%, and in Scandinavia, the same. But since we just make the wines for, one blend, plus these are only a few bottles, we're like 4,000 some bottles, no more than that. And we're not going to make different wines and bottle in different way, different percentage. And so if we can move a little bit vintage in a different percentage, so that's why mainly it's called Blanco. So Viejas, Tinajas, Blanco, mainly Muscat again. Muscatel is a grape that smells exactly, in the wine, smells a lot like if you were smelling the grape in the vineyard. The Muscatel, as I told you before, is used a lot in Chile to produce pisco and also as a table grape. Okay, so we have a lot of Muscatel planted in Chile. Also, okay. First of all, then let's go back to the color. The color is a beautiful golden color, dark yellow, turning a little bit into a more deep gold color. Beautiful color. It's in the nose. Smells like fresh grapes. It's beautiful. A lot like flowers, like a little bit, I will say, like a little bit of white peach, honey, smells like spring. But the funniest thing is that since we're used to have this grape to eat it a lot as a white grape, table grape, and also the wines before were made more rustic. So they had a higher residual sugar, and there was a lot of pipeño blanco, like white, like an artisan wine that had a lot of the residual sugar. So you always, when you smell this wine, you think that when you put it in your mouth, you're going to feel that it's sweet, and that's not it. It's a dry muscat. So that's the trend today. Have a dry muscat. Oh wow! If you see the first time I put the glass close to my nose, I didn't swirl the glass. That's because their aromas are more volatile than others, so you don't need to move the glass, swirl the glass. Just take the glass close to your nose. And now, the second time, you do it. Wow. Well, let me tell you that in the mouth is it's full of flavor, has a lot of weight, and has a creaminess. It's not like, doesn't have a sharp acidity. It's a very gastronomic wine, I will say. After I taste this, I'm going to go and prepare something for lunch, late lunch today, because it's maybe with Thai food will go really well. With we have in Chile something called machas a la parmesana, which are Parmesan razor clams, and also I would say scallops. Parmesan scallops will go really well with it. I would say some pasta with creamy preparation with soft seafood as well. It's amazing. I really like it. Well, what else I can tell you about the soil? Well, as I told you before, this was the grapes are sourced from close to the coast, so it's right by the coastal and from the coastal mountain range. As I told you, this is the oldest soil that we have in Chile. So that soil was formed in so many years ago. Okay, this is like discomposed granite, and this mountain range was formed during the Jurassic period, so it's really old. So mostly we have loam soil with an excellent structure and drainage, about 20% of clay content in general. Um, well, what else I can tell you? The altitude is not very high; it's about 200 meters above the sea level. We're rescuing the traditions, and the amphoras have a special meaning, also anthropological meaning, because these amphoras were introduced by the Spanish, but also they were made afterwards by our native people. That they have an heritage of making amphoras, maybe in a different shape, but they knew how to work with the clay. So was as a way to blend with the Spanish. Very interesting. Well, on the next video, we're gonna taste Viejas Tinajas Tinto. That is 100% Cinsault. So I wait you for the next chapter. I recommend you, and I will tell you where to find these wines. Okay. Mainly, I have information for the UK market, the US market, and the Canadian market. So those are the main markets. But if you have any questions where you can find these wines in different countries, just write me. The idea is that I can help you to look for wines in where you are living or staying or traveling. And remember, if you need some information, if you are coming to Chile, not only about wine, just let me tell you something. Did you know that Chile has more than 2,000 active volcanoes? Just think about that. Just that question. So this place is very unique. That's why maybe we have a lot of earthquakes sometimes. Not that's not the reason. There are many different reasons because that we have like faults apart from the volcanoes. We're supposed to have a lot of earthquakes all the time. But even though that, we make great wine. So I wait you for the next video. Have a great weekend, and I see you then. Have a good time, and cheers with Viejas, Tinajas, Blanco of the Martino Winery.